Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, this Wichita man reaches a milestone in his career that few of us could ever hope to reach. And 30 years ago, his father accomplished the exact same thing. It's a trip back in time to the days of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Learn the story behind this one-room schoolhouse frozen in time. Plus, this Hayesville woman has a plan to help grieving Kansans find peace and comfort. It all stems from her own experience of losing a child. And we'll venture into the wilds of Kansas to explore the lives of a curious and aggressive breed of bird. Wait till you hear the lengths they go to just to stay fed. I'm Sierra Scott. Those are just some of the stories that are coming up and ready to roll. Positively Kansas starts right now. Saving up for retirement is a growing concern for people who are even in their 20s and 30s. But it was never a concern for Ronnie Brown of Wichita because, well, he's never planned to retire. He's been doing what he loves for 60 years and is still going strong. Jim Grayway combs through the details and cuts to the chase.
Well, when you get a haircut, you better go back home. When you get a haircut, get a barber you have known. Since you were a little bitty boy sitting in a booster chair, 'cause you might look like Larry Moore or Curly if a stranger cuts your hair. Oh, Lord.
Strangers don't stay strangers for long at Ronnie Brown's barbershop on West Douglas.
So when did you have the eye surgery?
I had one in January.
Yeah, I have customers like cut them when they're little babies, and now they're gray-haired people that look kind of like me.
After 150,000 haircuts, Ronnie's customers are honoring him for 60 years of barbering.
Ron and I have known each other since high school. And good barber.
Ronnie started working at this shop when he was 20 years old with his dad, Jay Lloyd, who was the original Brownie.
I used to tell my dad I was tired. And he said, "You're not tired, you're lazy."
I've seen too many fellows come in and take a retirement, go home, sit down.
Jay Lloyd became one of Hatteberg's people in 1987 when he turned 80.
Brownie, as most folks call him, has been cutting 12 to 15 heads of hair a day since November of '29.
And a couple chairs away, there was Ronnie, 32 years from turning 80 himself. Now, fast forward those 32 years.
My game plan probably to fall over dead behind the barber chair. Take somebody's ear off when I hit the floor.
In case you didn't know, Ronnie is kind of a comedian.
The barber says, "How would you like your haircut?" And they might say, "In silence, please."
But seriously.
My dad, one time, he did this. He says, "How's that look?" The guy said, "Pretty good, but I can't see anything. How come?" He says, "I don't wear glasses."
Ronnie says the best thing about barbering is the people. He says you have to be a people person.
You don't make a lot of money, but you have a wonderful relationship with your clients.
His wife, Carol, has everybody signing a giant card of congratulations.
He's a very humble person, and he does not like attention, but I just felt like it needed to be recognized that he's worked 60 years in the same spot.
Carol says it would be nice if Ronnie would take a little more time off so they could do some traveling, but she gets it.
Oh, it's his life.
She says she's just glad Ronnie is still doing what he loves. and she couldn't be more proud.
He's a fine Christian young man, an old man.
If Ronnie goes 7 more years, he'll reach his dad's mark of 67 years in barbering. And he just may do it. Let's face it, it's a never-ending mission to help keep Wichitans looking sharp generation after generation. Ronnie says the toughest time he ever experienced in the barber business was the 1970s. That's when a lot of men started wearing their hair long and a lot of barbers went out of business. But he and his father persevered, and now the shop is going strong. 90 years, a fixture here in the Delano area. For Positively Kansas, I'm Jim Grayway.
Ronnie is actually part of a growing trend and is still on the young end of things. The U.S. Labor Department says 4.5% of 85-year-olds are still vibrant, active members of the workforce. That's twice as many as just 10 years ago. But whether you work or not, your golden years should still be a time for new experiences and discoveries. Here's a story about some Kansas seniors who are doing something they always wanted to do, and in the process are writing the next chapter of their lives. Literally. Anthony Powell has the story.
He wrote that book, and so he wanted us to see that. And
when you get a bunch of creative type folks together, especially those who've lived many years and have so many stories to tell, the discussions are lively. And lively discussions are definitely what you'll find here every month at the Downtown Senior Center as writers talk about their book ideas. They are led by teacher Starla Kreiser, who refers to herself as a
Jane of all trades. I've just done life. I've been a legal secretary, I worked in tool shops, as a bookkeeper. I don't know, just whatever. I'm one of those people that loves to learn. I don't want to grow up, never will.
Kreiser has also always had a passion for writing and has authored dozens of books ranging from children's stories to those about senior relationships. 5 years ago, Kreiser felt a calling to share her interest in writing and started the class. She teaches both technique.
What is a genre? How do you get an idea? And then we kind of go out through the writing craft. How do you build characters? How do you find a setting? How do you?
As well as the business side of being an author.
Publishing and the very many ways you can do that. And marketing, because as you know, 75% of the writing part of your job is marketing. Because publishers do not market for you, unless you're Stephen King or Nora Roberts.
But these Wichita authors aren't doing it for the money. They are happy to self-publish and see their ideas in book form. Mostly, though, it's helped them write a post-retirement chapter.
Good to see you. My public awaits.
I was sort of lost when I retired, and I thought I've got to do something. And I've always loved telling stories, and I started volunteering with children.
Brown, a nurse for half a century, also started coming to the writing class. Now she's written 3 children's books and is working on a 4th.
I think the writing class is a wonderful opportunity. I went to college for years and years and took a lot of different writing classes, and nothing is compared to this. This is so real.
It's been so much fun. And I always think I was 80 years old and I got a whole new career. I am so lucky.
Sharon Revel is known as the class illustrator. She's done drawings for several authors. In her career, Revel was a classic art painter, doing portraits and other formal work. The class has helped her adapt a whole new style.
Darla has her cow, and Sharon has her sad toad. And then we have the mean frog.
One of the other really neat things about doing this story is that I was able to share with the authors a couple of children's books that are particularly personal to me. Now, this is a book that I actually wrote. It's about our cat Hogan, who kind of acts like a dog sometimes. And this is a book authored by my late mother Alice about the summers that we spent and continue to spend in northern Michigan. Like mine and my mom's, most of the books produced in the class are fiction. Some authors, though, tell real-life stories.
This was the story that I wrote, that I just finished, was a biography about a baseball player.
Gerald McCoy is the author of Fireball, the tragedy and triumph of Isaiah Jackson. Jackson was a gifted baseball player, but in constant legal trouble. After he retired from the prison baseball team, he became a well-known artist. As a kid, McCoy saw Jackson pitch.
This was a tribute to my dad. He and I did some father-son bonding at the baseball games that we watched Isaiah pitch, and unfortunately my dad passed away before he could see it in print.
But knowing his dad got to see him work on the book makes McCoy smile. Getting his book on the shelves of a well-known store also makes him grin.
I got to tell you, the first time I walked into Barnes & Noble and saw it on the bookshelf at Barnes & Noble, it was a tremendous feeling. I felt like I had to get out the door real quick before my head swelled up to a point where I wouldn't fit. And I said to the clerk who was helping me in the store, I said, "This is my book. This is me."
While that kind of success is nice, McCoy and the other authors stress it's the joy and affirmation the class brings them that is far and away the most important.
I would have such a dull life if it were not for this.
It has given me a great deal of self-confidence and a great deal of pride.
So if you're a senior who likes to write and have always wanted to create a book, these folks will welcome you with open arms.
If you're a writer, you've always had these voices in your head. Well, you can't talk about that to your friends or your family because they're like, oh yeah, right. You know, but other writers understand that.
So you're in good company here.
That's right.
For Positively Kansas, I'm Anthony Powell.
In addition to the class we just showed you at the Downtown Senior Center on Walnut Street, students can also attend the class at the Linwood Senior Center, located at 1901 South Kansas Street. Next, we go to Hayesville, where Stacy Carmine wants to create a special place to grieve. She wants to help others who've lost loved ones have a place to reflect and mourn and find hope. Here's what she has in mind.
The Angel of Hope is a monument or a memorial for families that have lost children. There are currently 147 of these angel monuments worldwide, to include Canada and Japan, but there is unfortunately not one in the entire state of Kansas. In September of '92, I was pregnant with my second child, my husband's first child, and I woke up one morning and told my husband, I said, something's not right. And he says, what do you mean something's not right? I said, baby's not moving. When the nurse put the fetal Doppler on my stomach and looked at me and said there was no heartbeat, I was in complete denial. And in '94, I remember hearing on the news about this Angel of Hope. And I had already been given the book, The Christmas Box, and the two kind of clicked in my head, and I'm thinking, really? So there really is an angel somewhere, where there really wasn't. The author of the book, The Christmas Box, Richard Paul Evans, he went to an author and he created this artist created this angel because so many families like myself was reading the book. And in the book, the mother loses a daughter and she grieves at a cemetery at the base of an angel. So I'm hoping that it'll bring other families and people in the community, not just the community of Hayesville, but for the whole entire state of Kansas. You know, this is something that anybody can take comfort at, whether it was the loss of a child or the loss of a mother, because I'm not where my mother's buried. She's in the same cemetery as my son. So at any time, you know, that you're feeling that disconnect or that loneliness or that you need that peace and comfort, that's somewhere this angel is going to be able to provide. The angel itself, the top part of the angel, is what's sculpted by the artist, which is ordered from a foundation in Salt Lake City called the Christmas Box Foundation. She's 4 foot 2 inches tall. Her wingspan is 5 foot 2, and her arms are out like this, as if she was receiving something. And that's so families can lay roses or flowers in memory of their child or in memory of anybody, you know. That part of the angel is $15,000, so we do have a lot of fundraising to do. If there's any parents out there that would love to help us fundraise, that would like to help bring awareness of what this angel can bring to the community, then please feel free to reach out to us. We have a lot of money to raise.
The City of Hayesville is providing land for the memorial at Randall Dorner Park. If you'd like to learn more, you can search for Angel of Hope, Kansas on Facebook. For any of you Little House on the Prairie fans watching tonight, you're going to love this next story. It takes you back in time when one-room schoolhouses dotted the landscape just like in the show. A Caldwell, Kansas couple is doing all they can to preserve the history of these tiny schoolhouses. They gave Anthony Powell a tour.
Sounds like fun. At that time, we will go over them and compare the names, dates, and relationships that we have discovered.
Many of us became familiar with one-room schoolhouses by watching the iconic TV series Little House on the Prairie. At one time in America, there was an estimated 200,000 of these quaint schoolhouses. Today, that number has dwindled to about 200. 2 can be found on the property of Mike and Valerie Brunhaber in the tiny town of Caldwell, Kansas, about an hour southwest of Wichita. For the last several years, the Brunhabers have been giving tours of their schoolhouses. As you can see, Valerie even dresses up like a teacher from the 1800s. Mike showed us around the Bellevue School, constructed in 1894 and operated until 1956.
At one time, Sumner County had about 200 different school districts.
The Brunhabers purchased Bellevue back in 2010 for $50. After closing as a school, the county used it as a polling place. But it had been boarded up for many years until the Brunhabers moved it to their property. They've had to do a lot of restoration, but much of the original structure remains intact.
This is a slate blackboard. It was installed in 1926. We have the receipt, and we also have in the records that they bought it through a grant, or a loan, excuse me, from the bank in town.
When they originally purchased Bellevue, the couple had no intention of giving tours.
And I got to looking at this building and I thought, you know, it'd be nice to have it for storage. And after getting a hold of the township and paying for it and bringing it over here, I thought that it was too ornate to ruin its character. And we eventually just wound up restoring it back into the school that it was.
And even though it's been a lot of work, the couple is glad about their decision.
I like the saying, you know, you can teach history in a book, but if you can show it to them in person, it's a lot better. And when we do have school groups come out, just the look on the kids' faces is worth it.
Next, it was time for Valerie to give us a tour of the Spring Creek Schoolhouse, which was built in 1904 and operated until 1947.
It'll have desks going, facing the blackboard.
Spring Creek was also vacant when it was purchased by the couple from the county and then moved to their property for tours. Spring Creek is almost done being renovated.
We'll lay it in here diagonal just like the original floor.
Of course, indoor plumbing didn't exist when Bellevue and Spring Creek were constructed so many years ago. So if you come out here and take a tour and you need to use the facilities, you're going to be using an outhouse. But hey, that's part of the authentic experience of coming out here and taking a trip through time, right? A trip the Brunhabers say can make you feel closer to your roots, just like it has for them.
Both of my sets of grandparents went to a one-room school, so it's kind of cool for me to feel that myself.
You're living their history.
Yeah.
For Positively Kansas, I'm Anthony Powell.
The Brunhabers are part of a national group called the Country School Association of America. That organization is dedicated to preserving the memory of one-room schoolhouses. Now to this week's Kansas Wild Edge Report. Photojournalist Mike Blair ventured out to find some hardy and hungry hunters who stalk their prey from the sky.
Drive by a flat, marshy grassland, and chances are you'll see a northern harrier. That's what's on their birth certificate, though their name tag more likely says marsh hawk. These buoyant, slender raptors float just above the grass line, wheeling and turning as they search for prey. Dark in color, they're instantly recognized by a broad white band in front of the tail. They're marathoners among birds of prey, sometimes covering more than 100 miles a day while circling a small hunting zone. Other raptors spend much time sitting and watching, attacking only when prey is seen. But harriers, like owls, use sound to help pinpoint prey at close range. Thus, they fly almost continually, low and slow, watching and listening. Main menu items are small mammals, mice, rats, and voles. But frogs are high on the list, as are birds like red-winged blackbirds. Even small ducks, especially the weak and sick, are taken. Healthy ducks respect marsh hawks and usually sprint out of harm's way when they approach. Because they hunt just a few feet high, marsh hawks often gain the element of surprise in tall vegetation. They can wheel and drop instantly to seize their prey. They often miss their strikes, resuming flight immediately. When successful, they eat on the ground. Marsh hawks readily scavenge when food is scarce. Female marsh hawks are dark brown and streaked, camouflaged to help hide in grassy ground nests. Males are handsome, pale gray with black wingtips. Especially in winter, marsh hawks are common where water and cattails give way to grasslands. They are not found in forest or heavily wooded situations. But in the open, riding the rails of an unseen roller coaster, they make for easy and exciting bird observations. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
I'm an adult, but I still love reading children's books. There's nothing better than a good children's book. Anyway, I'm here with Tina Heinrich, who is a former teacher, but also an author now of 2 children's books. I'm really excited to talk about this book, so thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me to
Absolutely.
talk about it.
Now, let's talk about your second book first, and then we'll go. It feels odd to do that, but let's talk about the newest book right now. So, talk about how you came up with this idea, and it's the weirdest word, and I'm not even sure I can say it. Loompa Rupper.
The Lumpa Rupper.
Lumpa Rupper. See, I can't do this. That's tough.
Close enough.
How in the world did you come up with that name first?
The Lumpa Rupper. Well, it would probably give away the whole mystery of the story.
It's kind of that's a secret.
It's kind of a children's mystery. So as you read through, that's what you're trying to do, is figure out what the Lumpa Rupper is.
Okay.
And don't feel too bad about it. My 5-year-old granddaughter she spotted something that she thought was a lump of rubber, and she jumped on the bed and goes, "Grandma Tina, it's the humpalumper." She wasn't even close.
Okay,
you know,
I wasn't either, really.
The lump of rubber.
Now, how did you come up with this idea? It's really interesting and different.
Well, I have a little dog that's a Chiweenier, half Chihuahua, half Dachshund, and she's got a real personality, and we have this, you know, this back and forth thing.
Love it.
You know, and so she'll follow me around everywhere, probably looking for treats, but, you know, I like to pretend she's helping me with chores or helping pick up stuff. Like one thing in the book tells about how she picks up toys, and of course she tears them up.
That's what dogs do.
And she'll come when she's called. Of course, you got to offer a treat, you know.
Well, yeah.
But
me too. If you call me, you have to offer me a treat too.
So, you know, and I was kind of ill at the time, and I was kind of bored laying around on the couch, and kind of thought, well, I'll write something for my granddaughters, and so I got started on it, and the result was the lump of rubber.
It sounds like just a really interesting story, and like you were saying, the illustrations are really beautiful in here too. So how did you come up with who you had illustrated?
I did the original drawings, and of course they were mostly sketches and light colored pencils, so I sent those original drawings to the company, which was Book Venture, and I hired an illustrator. And we worked back and forth, you know, like, okay, I want whiskers.
Because you have something in your head, right?
Yeah, I have it, or claws are too thick, you know, stuff like that. And he worked with me, and it came out pretty good, I thought.
I think that's really cool. Okay, so your first book, and you wrote this quite a while back, so there's been a long period of time in between these two. Talk about your first book and how you came up with being an author for a children's book. I think that's fascinating.
This first one is The Adventures of Flopsy and Flathead.
You came up with the best names for books.
Well, actually, I cannot say that I came up with Flopsy and Flathead because these are two chickens, and my sons named them.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But my middle son was the illustrator of the book, Josh Heinrich, and he came to me one day and he said, "Mom, you got to write a story about this. You just got to write a story," because a really crazy thing happened with the chickens, and he was pretty excited about it. And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And he says, "Oh yeah, you got to write the story." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that if you draw the pictures," because I knew he was very artistic. And he said, "Okay, it's a deal." Well, he got the raw end of the deal because it takes a lot longer to illustrate than it does to write. And I wrote it in poetic form.
Oh, cool. How fun. So if somebody wants to get a hold of these books, what's the best way to do it?
You would go to bookventure.com and click on the bookstore part of the website, or you could probably go to Barnes & Noble.
Excellent.
And get it there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Tina, for taking time with us. I love that. And I'm going to get the name down eventually. Probably not yet, but I will. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have a question or comment, please shoot it off to us at positivelykansas@kpts.org. We're always looking for more story ideas. I'm Sierra Scott. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.